Welcome to Radical Hunter Dogs, and you will recall earlier in the year I had an engine failure, and this is the first time I've ever rebuilt an engine. So let's just remind ourselves what that engine sounded like back earlier in the year. As I say, this is the first time I've ever rebuilt an engine from start to finish. I've got a few mechanical skills that I've picked up over the years, but this is my first bit of engine work that I've ever done. So join me on that journey, which will be an interesting one. It doesn't end spectacularly well in this episode, but you'll have to stick around to find out why. But there's certainly loads to learn along the way. So let's rejoin past Will as we're about to rebuild the cylinder head. So I think I've got everything sorted. Cam side, that side. I've got my sticks, and I think I've got the big valves go that side, the little valves go that side. I think I've set it up in that way. Been to the machine shop. I've sprayed it with the rust inhibitor. That's what this is. It's sort of the opposite of what it says it is. Good way of remembering it. As I say, I've never done this before, so don't follow me. I've looked online a few times about how these things are supposed to work, and then a couple of minutes I think at a time I'll set a timer so I know what I'm doing, so I know I'm not sort of going too heavily on one. We'll see how it goes. I think everything's got to be pretty clean, and then I've got to use a bit of oil as well on the stems. We'll go from there. Alright, let's how badly wrong can this go? Is that enough? Not too much. So here it goes. Okay, I've done half of one side in an hour. Yeah, I shouldn't have started at 5 o'clock on a Sunday night. I'm going to go inside now. It's going to be a few days for me, but for you, it will be instantaneous. Welcome back. We're doing this on a weekday evening now. I've just told my wife I'm going to go out to the garage and fiddle with my stick. I'm going to just carry on doing this. I think it shouldn't take too long. And welcome back. It's been a moment for you, been a couple of days for me. All of these are now done. It was much quicker doing this side than that side. The sticker thing stuck much better to this side than it did to that side for some reason. Don't know why. I am going to take them out and give this a really good clean again, because I'm just a bit paranoid, having done this for the first time, that I'm going to get loads of this stuff in the engine. It's all going to break apart the moment I turn it on. So it's going to use copious amounts of brake clean. I'm just going to clean it all down so it's sparkling clean, and then put a little bit of anti-rust oil back on it before we go and get this vacuum tested tomorrow. Oh, I've got no idea whether this is the right thing to do or not, but yeah, that feels prudent. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. Okay, I'm not sure if the GoPro actually recorded that, but it was really difficult for these ones. Slightly easier for that one, and even easier for that one. I'm using more assembly lube. More lube is the answer, and having just the right amount of squish on the valve stem spring, and they are going in a bit easier now. Still not quick, and I still think a better tool will be better, but I'm getting the hang of it, and it's slightly famous last words, but I think it's slightly faster. Okay, next up, putting the lifters back on. In a previous video, potentially, maybe the same video, I reconditioned those. So I took them apart, cleaned them out, filled them back with oil, and put them back together again. So they are ready to go back in. I don't think it's important, but I'm putting them back in the slots they came out. And yeah, we'll go from there. And we're putting the water neck back on first, and then we're putting the timing belt cover on. That's important because that is where the timing marks. That's where the timing marks are. So you won't be able to do anything with the timing without that cover being on. Those bolts, I did put them in just to talk them up to spec. Some people say you need to put a bit of Loctite in them, and they do. There's a risk of them kind of vibrating themselves loose. I haven't done that, but you know, other things went wrong with this engine, so I'm not too worried about it. Although maybe I need to be thinking about that again. The camshafts are placed back on the engine, and you can kind of see a little bit, and especially in the high speed, they do flex a bit, don't they? That wasn't very good. Anyway, back to pass wheel. There's a risk, obviously. I will have to clean this off again, but there is a risk that this sits for months, you know. So I'm just spraying it with the rust inhibitor, just to make sure that the mating surfaces don't rust in the meantime. It is going into winter. Guess that'll stay like that for the next couple of years. Welcome back to Radical Underdogs. It's now winter. I think I started this in spring. The block is all done. I didn't get the block resurfaced. It was at the minimum height already for the championship, so I couldn't get the machine shop to clean off all the old gasket material. So I'm going to have to do that by hand. Last time I spent ages with a plastic scraper. I think I've got the skills now to use a razor blade, which I think I did a little bit here, and it looks like it's going to be a lot faster than doing it with plastic. I'm going to use some solvents and stuff to help me out as well. Because it is winter, there's not very much space in here. So please do subscribe so I can become a successful YouTuber and buy a bigger garage. But yeah, we're a bit hemmed in. I tried keeping this outside. It didn't really work. Got very damp, and the wife wouldn't sit in the passenger seat because it was too damp. But I tried to tell her. Anyway, right, let's get on with this. I thought I'd finish this. I went down to the engine place the other day, and they say they use sandpaper on their bare block engines. I can see that obviously getting abrasive stuff in an engine is a bad idea. He says to use, and this is a guy who's built multiple race-winning engines, and a different series, mind, but engines are engines, right? Using a bit of WD-40 and an 80 grit sandpaper, which seems a bit harsh to me. But again, he's built lots of race-winning engines. Everything I've read says don't use sandpaper, but here I am about to use sandpaper. I'm just going to make absolutely sure that I'm going to get rid of any grit that might come out, especially in the sort of oil channels. I don't really want that getting into the bearings, obviously, on first startup. So I'll be very careful with cleaning it, lots and lots and lots of brake clean. But hopefully it'll mean that this kind of cleans up a little bit nicer than it currently looks right now. So, as I said before, I don't know. Let's find out. Okay, the sandpaper did a job. It certainly, I think, looks better than it did before. Certainly was kind of dark the first time I did it, so maybe there was some more gasket material to come off. It's not like completely shiny. I wasn't pushing down too hard. There are some kind of scratches. I don't think they're deep enough to cause an issue. Definitely not catching on the thumbnail without a glove on as well. I did check that. So I think this is kind of worked. I'm going to absolutely clean. You can see the kind of little bits of abrasive material kind of in the cylinder bores here and just around generally. So I'm going to absolutely make sure I'm using an awful lot of brake clean to try and make this absolutely free of any abrasives. So did that work? I guess so. I guess it did. It's better than it did before. It probably would have sealed either way, to be honest. But if you think I've done something incredibly stupid, do say so in the comments. But as I say, it was from someone who kind of knew what they were doing. Maybe they used a different sandpaper that didn't. I don't know. I just used normal sandpaper. But okay, all right. Let's see how this goes. Okay, we're ready to assemble the first bit back into the engine. I've cleaned it up quite significantly. I used a couple of litres of brake clean, and I think I've got everything out. It's never going to be a complete clean room, which I'm a bit worried about, but it's better than nothing, I suppose. These are the oil squirters. There's a debate online about whether you use oil squirters in a race-going engine or not. I am going to put them back in. I think there's probably a reason Mazda had them in there. And then there's also a debate online. There's always a debate online, isn't there, about whether or not they have washers in them or not. I think the earlier versions had them, and then Mazda got rid of them. These ones had washers, so I'm replacing with washers. I think that's probably fair enough. I couldn't find actually a Mazda replacement for the washers, so this is kind of what I measured them up to be. They're the M10s, 18mm,
by 1.5. So I've got a new set of copper washers to go in there as well with them. Probably doesn't make much in the way of a difference anyway. These are the new bearings. They look a bit different to the old ones, I think. These are, you can see it. Oops. These are ACL race bearings. That seems to be the part number, if you're interested. Yeah, I've never done this before. I mean, the tabs are lining up. I'm going to be using assembly oil. I'm sure there's tricks to this, but let's. I think this goes next. I haven't actually. I'm assuming the the crankshaft must go next. I've got a gauge as well. I've got a plastic gauge. Is it worth using it? I suppose it's better to find out now that it's not going to work than later. I'll dig out the plastic gauge and try and get that working. So it seems to have worked. And what are we getting? This is millimeters. It's definitely smaller than 0.050. I think this is kind of maybe a little, maybe 0.04. It was the same on this one. I'll come back to you if there's a significant difference. I'm going to check all of them. I'm not sure if it's close to tolerance. I'm going to have to look up the tolerances, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close enough? I don't know. You tell me. They're all the same. They're all kind of in that range. I'm just going to put it together now, I think. I might release this video before I actually start the engine up, so if there's something catastrophically wrong here, there might be time. There might be time to sort it out, but yeah, we'll see. Okay, this project's on hold now. Trying to put together the pistons. They came assembled, and obviously disassembled them at the machine shop to get them to fit in their bores. I've got to put the piston rings on. I've got the manual here. So I've worked out the oil control ring, and I'm doing the kind of 30 degrees clocking and all the rest of it. But these two rings, they've got writing on one side. That one has the 50, and this one you can't see it, but it is stamped on the top here. But the profile of them are the same. So I don't know which way up they go. So you've got on the OEM ones, you've got this little step, and that's compression ring number 2. These two are exactly the same. These are IR Motorsport ones. So until I find out which way up, and which way up I think is pretty clear. It's where the stampings are. So that's the way up they go. I don't know which one is number 1 and which one is number 2, because there are no instructions that came with it, and the profile is not the same as the OEMs. They're both exactly the same kind of square profiles, so I have no idea which way round these piston rings go. So that's it for this weekend. What a complete waste of time. So I've now wasted all that time. The engine itself, over there, I'm going to put it under wraps for a bit. What I might try and do is I might try and paint it in the meantime. I didn't really want to paint it when it's kind of all apart at the moment. So yeah, I'm gonna try and think of a way to paint it whilst it's like that. All right. Well, for you it won't be long, but for me it's going to be quite a long time now. Alright, this turned out pretty badly, but nowhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be. Obviously all about painting is prep. You saw on this video I didn't really do very much prep. Just a little bit of sanding off some of the rust and flaky bits, and then sort of really heavy coats of enamel paint. It's, I have to say, not great, but actually I thought it would turn out a lot more terrible than this. It is just a race engine. It's going back in the car. The primary purpose of this is to protect the engine a little bit from corrosion, and from a distance make it look a bit snazzy, but it was never intended to be perfect, and it certainly is nowhere near perfect. But then I did it for a couple of hours. The other good news is that I had a phone call halfway through this, and I now know which order to put the piston rings on. It's the black one on second, and the one with the kind of silvery outline on the top one, and with obviously the writing facing up. So I've had thank you very much for that. I will try and get the pistons put in this now. That's the next stage. And I need to check the piston ring gaps and stuff like that, which I've never done before either, so that's a journey of discovery as well. I'm not sure, it's basically it's got a bit dark. It's actually not that late, it's only about 4 o'clock, but it is a Sunday, so I might call it a day here. I might put some pistons together, I'm not sure. But yeah, that turned out not as bad as I thought it was at one point today. So, could be a lot worse. Alright, it's been several weeks. We're on to do the piston rings now. I think I've looked up how to do this. This is my first time doing it. Basically, you get the piston ring, put it in there, measure the gap, make sure it's okay. If it's not, I've got a manual piston ring filer. Let me grab that. There you go, got this manual piston ring filer. It's been supplied with the handle on the wrong way around, so obviously the people in China know how this is used. So this will grind any further gap that's needed. We'll see how much gap is needed. Right, let's do that now. Factory service manual, here are the rings. So end gap, standard, 0.0, this is thousandths of an inch hopefully. 0.15 to 0.3, we just found it was 0.3. And the wear limit is 1. Wow, okay. So we're at the upper end actually of the standard end gap for number 1, and then number 2 is 0.3 to 0.45 of a millimetre, with a wear limit of, well, yeah, quite a lot higher. So that should be okay. So again, another cheap tool that I've got here. I've managed to, I just purchased these piston ring pliers. I'm not going to try and do it one-handed. But the point of these pliers is that you don't break the piston rings by introducing a twist to them, and I'll try and remove all the dog hair. It's just, anyone who has German Shepherds, love them, but when you're trying to build something in a clean area, yeah, okay, right, let's get on with it. Measured this piston ring, I think it's all okay, it's clean, no dog hair on it. Maybe over here, so this is the front over here. So, snapped into place in a much more alarming fashion than I hoped, but that is the first piston ring I've ever fitted apart from these oil control rings. So, on to the next one. This is the lower one, it's more black. Supposedly has H2 marked stamped on it, but absolutely, I'm telling you, does not have H2 stamped on it. Those of you screaming at the screen not to fit the first one first, you are right. Because actually getting the second one over the first one is difficult. I guess I'll flip it upside down and try it that way around. Yeah, I'm gonna have to flip it. I'm gonna have to take the old one off. Why are these are rubbish. It's a disaster. These are crap, by the way. For the first time user, anyway. It slipped off and it's now in both rings. Which is not what I wanted. Okay, piston rings have been set. None of them needed adjusting, actually. So the IR Motorsport pistons with the 0.5 overbore seemed to be absolutely fine. The engine builder did a great job. Sized the pistons exactly to the bores. None of the piston rings needed adjusting. So, yeah, okay, on for the next stage. Okay, so I'm going to now assemble these. Got the oil groove to the front, oil gallery at the top. I'm going to use the assembly lube in quantities unknown, but probably quite a lot. And hopefully, well, that's out of battery. Well, hopefully this will be all right then. You know what, though? I must have been using those piston ring pliers wrong, or maybe there are better ones out there, because I just couldn't get it to grip on a piston ring that was already fitted to these pistons. It just, for some reason, the bit ahead of the piston just wouldn't grip. Anyway, so I managed to get round to doing all these pistons and finally getting all the rings fitted.
It's probably also worth mentioning at this point that the pistons and the rods, well, the whole assembly really, was balanced at the machine shop. So they just measured the weights of each thing and made sure it was all kind of balanced. And they actually didn't need to do any work to take off any material. They did it just by moving bits around, so the lighter bits there and the heavier bits there. So actually, I probably could have done that. But anyway, they did that. We're not going back to past Will. We're going back to past Will, Jordan, and Ian. And Jordan and Ian came over to give me a hand. And actually, it was massively helpful having their help, especially for people who have done this before as well. So you can kind of see here, Ian giving me some decent lessons on how to build this engine. And I will actually pause at the very moment where an error was made which doomed this engine. So from this point onwards, the engine is doomed forevermore. Tell me why you think that is, and maybe I'll reveal it in the comments afterwards.
It was a bit too tall for you.
I can't expect him to work on his knees, can I? That's it. Yeah, make sure dot's facing the front.
Yeah, which it is.
Happy with the
Slide
shell?
it in.
Yeah.
Do you put some oil in the shell?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, definitely.
Whack your ring down, whack the clamp down.
Got hammers involved in building an engine.
Yes.
Okay. Didn't really expect.
And then just tap it down nice and slowly.
Precision.
That's it, hold it there a minute, just make sure it's tight. Because obviously the pistons are slightly cone shaped.
Oh yeah, okay.
A little bit more, mate, you're right on the edge.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. That's it. Should be inside now, mate.
Yeah.
That's it. It's one of them, when you get the piston to where the rings are, you try to get the rings all in
Okay, yeah.
one go.
Ian and Jordan have just left. That was a really helpful session. Loads of stuff I didn't know. I got the oil pan on, as you can see. During the last session, we put the pistons in, gave them a little tap with the hammer to help seat everything, making sure all the bearings are properly lubricated. Yeah, it's looking almost like an engine. Putting the oil pan on. Yeah, the issue with the oil pan was that the windage tray had obviously flexed, I think is the way to say it, when it came off. Because obviously it's sealanted down. So when the oil pan came off, it had to, I levered it off, and I think it obviously came bent it back into shape, and then tried to tighten that up in a bit of a spiral pattern. Hopefully it's all worked out, and we're not going to get any serious oil leaks from this, but only time will tell, I suppose. Next step is just to follow kind of the guidance, put a few of the ancillaries back on, a few bits and pieces I need to fit, and then the engine can come off the stand. I need to make another engine stand so it can kind of sit on its own 2 feet, as it were, on a little trolley or something. I can move it around. So I need to make that as well. I'm going to make that out of plywood and steel and stuff. So that's also on the list of things to do. Welcome back. It's the day after I had some help. Thank you very much for all that help rebuilding the engine. We're going to get back on track with this. I think the aim is to put most of this engine together at the top and at the front, time it up and stuff, and then I'll take it off the stand onto my home built stand over there somewhere, and we can do the rear of the engine and the clutch and the clutch plate and stuff like that. I have got a new clutch for it, so I'll do that as well. Replacing the dipstick tube, this just kind of pulled out, and I've repainted it because why not? And yeah, let's get on with it. This is getting close to completion. I am increasingly worried about it starting, but and then staying started as well. So I'm increasingly worried about it. It looks good though, nice and shiny, red and shiny. It's what an engine should look like, I guess. I don't know. Let's get on with it. Okay, moment of truth. Head gasket go back on. The head, which is nice and clean, but we are getting some oil leaking out of some of the oil ports, so I'm going to have to obviously wipe that off before it goes on and quickly put it on so that not too much
leaks out. I don't know what to do about that really. Other than do what I'm doing, I guess. Then yeah, so got just a genuine head gasket, nothing special to go on. Let's get on with it. Yeah, so you got the E, which is pretty clearly in line. You got the I, which I think is in line. Oh, sorry about that. But yeah, I think so. Okay, welcome back. I've made the mistake of painting the engine block, which means this valve cover head now looks pretty terrible on top. In the interest of doing this cheaply, I'm just going to use paint that I've already got. I've got some VHT paint. Very high temperature paint, which I'm pretty sure you don't need. I just don't have any more enamel paint to paint it with. Paint is all about prep. I'm not going to do very much prep with this, so it's not going to come out great. It's also freezing cold in here. So all of these things considered, it's not probably going to go very well here. But as I say, like, it just looks totally rubbish. And yeah, I'm just going to do a quick job on this and see how we go. It's a race car after all. It doesn't need to look great, but it does look really poor now. So I'm just going to do what I can with this. Okay, today is the day we see whether that engine I've spent 6 months building actually works in the car. All right, it's pretty much night time. Started about 9:30 in the morning. It's now about 6:30 at night. It feels later because it's been dark for ages. We're not quite there. I guess I could power on for a couple of hours, and I think it's probably only an hour or two away from giving it a startup try. But I don't want to make a huge mistake doing something, so I'm going to leave it till tomorrow. Big issue we had putting it in. I didn't bother using my balancer thing, which can tip it backwards and forwards, which meant it became a manhandling of tipping the engine backwards and forwards. I think next time I'll use the tools that I bought for exactly this purpose, so that's a lesson. 2 people, Ian was massively helpful, so I don't think there was anything really that I could have done on my own. Maybe I could have done. 3, transmission, maybe having the transmission attached would be quite useful, but I'll put this oil on the top so that I don't forget. There's no oil in it. Yeah, I'm going to give it a go tomorrow. I think we're so close now. I am a bit worried that this won't start after all this, or it will sound exactly how it sounded before. I do genuinely think that's what's going to happen. Right, okay, let's get on with this. I reckon it won't even turn over the start. That's what I reckon. I reckon there's a wiring thing. Okay?
Yeah.
No oil pressure.
Sorry?
No oil pressure.
No,
Yeah.
it'll take a little while to get it up, mate.
Takes a lot.
That's give it for a minute. Yeah, leaking
It
water
does take a
somewhere.
minute. Might be a leaking or what?
I think we'll leak out a thermostat housing. Yeah, that is.
Has it done up?
I think it's the actual housing.
What's going on?
Yeah, I think it's the housing that's got a dodgy pipe.
Gasket on it, or?
No, I think it's the pipe there. No, no, it'll start up and run.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised.
What? It's like, yeah!
It'll crank, it'll go straight away.
The first bit's right at least.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So, mate, get some plugs in here.
That's ridiculous. I can't believe you got pressure. Most things go wrong. Ready?
Yeah, go for it, mate.
And being a race car, obviously you can't run this in on the road, so you're just trying to build up speed, drifting down the driveway. And next time we are out at Snetterton to run this engine in properly, but it doesn't go well. Yeah, what is that?
Yeah, so this stuff is that bearing material then?
Yeah.
It's pretty bad, isn't it? That's gone everywhere, isn't it?
I'm not going to lie to you. Yes.
Yeah, that's I'm going to have to fully rebuild it now anyway.